So there's a motion on the floor that council waives the TR 48 recording of council meeting policy, and we went for discussion. And I'm just asking council not to support it. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? I can't see Councillor Julie. No, don't be sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Carried. Okay, I'll take approval of the agenda. Councillor Norbury.
That the February 5th, 2025 special council meeting agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana. All in favor? Carried. Okay, it looks like we have Councillor Julick on Zoom as well as Councillor Dussault. And Councillor Dussault, you can hear us? Good. Ms. Scott, has she called in or is she trying to log into Zoom?
She is logged in and participating via Zoom.
Okay. Okay, well, hopefully she can hear us. New business, boiler for the community center for council discussion. Take the recommendation. Councillor Noxana.
The council approved $300,000 in the 2025-2029 five-year financial plan for all costs associated with replacing the boiler for the community center with funds coming from operating surplus.
Seconder. Councillor Norbury. We're going to go for discussion, but I'm going to go to Ms. Scott if we can just get an overview for all of council.
Sure. As council's aware, I did send an email yesterday about some issues we were having at the community center in regards to heat. We thought that issue was resolved, but staff were still regularly checking on the heating system. I was made aware early this morning from the Director of Community Services that there was issues again this morning. We had met briefly this morning to talk about those issues in regards to the boilers and what was happening to protect the infrastructure at the community center in the meantime and what that would mean for public access to the community center. And so in order to provide council with greater detail of what is happening at the community center, I will ask the Director of Community Services to provide you with a more in-depth summary of what is happening.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Oh. Okay, sorry, Your Worship. Yeah, so I was away yesterday and I found out about the boiler, and then this morning I was here at 6:30 just to make sure everything was working, and I found out it was not working properly. And the heating system was down. So my recommendation was to meet up with the CEO right away and to discuss the details. I do have our foreman here, so he can provide us with more technical information, which I think is very important for us. So I'm just going to pass to Ken, if that's okay.
Okay, so yeah, we've been struggling to keep this boiler going in this cold weather. It's been taxing on it. It's been running at 100% for quite a few days now. Unfortunately, our previous boiler from 2008, one of the backup ones we had, it suffered a failure, internal failure, and this most recent failure, same kind of failure, a leak in the heat exchanger, which is irreparable, unfortunately. So currently we're just working on getting additional heat into the facility by several means. We have an electrician there wiring in some heaters. We have some Herman Nelsons that we've rented from Southpaw to help assist with heating the facility. We have boilers on order to replace these ones. Our boiler technicians believe is going to arrive tomorrow to start disassembly of the current one so we can get one replaced and back online as soon as we can. Until that time, we'll have to remain closed. We'll have no domestic hot water. We'll have heat in the facility via these other means, but domestic hot water production is halted. The pool will have to remain closed because we just want to maintain the facility at a level that we can attain. reduce opening and closing of doors, obviously, to letting the cold air in. I'm not sure if any other questions, I guess I can be more specific.
Okay, yep.
I can provide a little more information there as well. So just to follow up, that, we've determined that the boilers are not repairable. They're going to need to be replaced. And as said, there are other heaters being used to protect the infrastructure. There's water circulating to protect those lines. But what that does mean is there is enough heat in there that we can maintain minimum staff, but we cannot have the facility open to the public as is. And so during extreme cold weather warnings, the community center is available as a place for people to go warm up. So if we have any additional cold weather warnings, I believe the one that was issued is rescinded now, but if we have additional ones, Town Hall will now be the warming center location while the community center is closed. We had originally planned on, our best case scenario was that we were going to be able to have the boilers up and running again by Friday, that the community center could be open again for the weekend. That is now looking like that is not going to be realistic. So the community center staff has been working with all of the user groups that would normally use the facility, people who had it booked. For example, there was a hockey tournament that was scheduled this weekend that's going to have to be canceled. There was a curling bonspiel that's going to have to be canceled. So staff at the community center is working on contacting all of those groups. The daycare that normally uses it has had to close. The fitness center will be closed, the pool will be closed, the library has had to close. All of those things will be affected until we can get heat, the boilers replaced and the heat back up to the level that we are comfortable with opening the facility to the public again. And so the measures that we are taking to inform the public that this has happened is the community center has put notices in addition to staff actually contacting all of the affected user groups and the people who had it booked. The community center is putting notifications on their website and all of their social medias. The District of Tumbler Ridge is putting notices on our website and all of our social medias. We are using sandwich board signs to provide information around town. We are going to put it on the big marquee outside of the community center. We have posters that we were placing up all around town as well. And yeah, hoping to get this fixed as soon as possible and mitigate the impact to the public. And because this has come up out of the blue, this is why we were asking for approval from council to spend up to $300,000. The $300,000 we're asking for should be enough to cover the cost of the new boilers, the installation of the new boilers. We're also hoping that it will be enough to cover the costs of the rentals for the additional heaters that we've had to use and any other incidental costs that are related to this incident. We have notified our insurance provider. Whether this ends up being an insurance claim or not, we don't know yet, but we have notified our insurance provider just to give them a heads up, and we'll be keeping track of expenses accordingly in case it does end up being an insurance claim. And I also don't believe that we know yet whether this, what the exact cause of the issue with the heat exchanger was, whether it would be a warranty issue or not. Those are details that we do not have yet at this time.
Okay, thank you very much for the update. Just before I go to council, just one, how many boilers are we looking to replace?
I believe 2, but in case that information is wrong, again, I will ask our Director of Community Services.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Yeah, Worship, we're looking to replace a couple of boilers.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Noxana.
Thank you. Just a question about the auxiliary heat and if we feel that that's enough or somebody else has taken a look to ensure it's enough that we don't cause further damage.
Ms. Scott?
Sorry. We believe, so with the, and again, I will ask the Director of Community Service to provide additional information when I'm done. But with the heaters that the district already has, ones we have borrowed from different departments, and the ones we have rented from a business here in town, the ones that will be wired in, we do believe this is enough to effectively protect the infrastructure and the asset, but not enough to be able to open the facility to the public. But again, I will ask the Director of Community Services if he has any additional information he would like to add.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, I'll refer there to our foreman here. Ken, I know he has the numbers of how many heaters we have there working, and all the details.
So yeah, currently we're not 100% sure what temperature we'll be able to maintain. We're definitely gonna strive to get as much heat in there as we can. Like I say, electricians over there right now wiring in, we had 5 heaters that he brought in, and we have 3 more additional ones that we have in the facility that will get wired in. And then with the addition of another Herman Nelson Southpaw, hopefully arriving as we speak, I'm hoping we'll be able to maintain the heat that we require. We did have an issue quite a few years back, some electrical gremlins in the system that we had to do this, and we were able to maintain, and we were able to keep the facility open, but we did not have hot water. But I would not recommend trying to keep it open in this. Fortunately, last time the weather wasn't quite as bitter cold as this, so we'll know more towards the end of the day, I guess, on how we'll be able to maintain.
Thank you. Follow up?
I have other questions, so if you want to circle back.
Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. Thank you, Mr. Bento and McEachran, for coming in during this emergency. I know we're taking away from your efforts over there, but appreciate you updating us. Do we have an anticipated timeline for when we can get the boilers?
Ms. Scott?
I will refer that to the Director of Community Services.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, we're hoping to get the boilers on Friday, so in a couple of days.
Thank you. Follow up?
And then timeline to get them installed, like 2-3 days. I mean, it's impossible to tell, right? But yeah, just something we can just tell our residents, because like it's a lot easier for people to swallow a pill that our community centers close if we have like an anticipated date, right? If we come up with a timeline, that would be nice to tell. So that'd be my comment there. And I had a question to staff if we notified the schools, because I know a lot of children, they don't see their parents after school. They just come straight to the community center. It would be, you know, unfavorable to have them just kind of arrive at the community center to find the doors locked. So
Yeah, so before I go to staff, I'm well aware that they've reached out to the schools to advise them. I mean, they're doing their best to advertise it to our residents, user groups. I mean, I think staff might want to answer this, but my understanding is they've reached out to groups, and it looks like to me that the facility is closed till Sunday. I mean, if we're canceling hockey, curling, bonspiel, or whatever, I think that's the time. And I think, you know, maybe staff can just say, like, you know, I mean, I think maybe we'll see an update maybe at the end of the day, today or tomorrow, on what's expected and stuff as the person gets on site, but just to get confirmation from staff about that. Like, so my understanding when I heard the update, the tech will be on site sometime tomorrow morning and then start to decommission if council does approve the $300,000 budget. But Ms. Scott?
Yeah, so that is correct. That is the plan, that as soon as the tech gets on site, we will start the work of removal of the boilers so that it's all prepped and ready for when we do receive the boilers. If the boilers are received on Friday as anticipated, then we are hoping that they can be installed and we can have the heating levels at a comfortable place that we feel comfortable in reopening, that we could open again by Monday. But again, I will ask the Director of Community Services if he has any other additional information that he would like to add.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, that is correct. And referring to the school, yeah, that was the first thing we did. So we went to the school, and because we understand the kids come in for lunch, you know, around, and so we make sure they're not there. So they were advised about that. Not only that, we do understand that not a lot of people have social media. So what we're doing is we contact all the seniors that we know. They go for pickleball or other programs. We're contact them, and we also went to the Willow Hall, poster there, and staff is always contacting everybody we know that come to the center as well. We're doing everything we can to put the word out there. Regarding to the installation, we hoping to have the boilers here Friday. Okay, so we have the boiler contract line up to be here early morning, so he can start taking the boiler out and putting the new one in. We should have an update by Friday to see how long it's going to take, but as Ms. Scott mentioned, probably next week, Monday, hoping to have a reopen.
Thank you very much. Follow-up?
Monday, that's what we heard. Monday, for sure. No, I'm teasing. Things change, right? Things happen, right? Like you never know. It could come in Friday afternoon, and it's a little harder. I get it. So thank you for the update on the timeline. Sometime next week, but we'll have updates to follow. So appreciate that. Great job letting everybody know, because not everyone's on Facebook, especially during the workday. I don't know what's going on until I get home. Check it. So thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Noxana?
Thank you. Given that we've had 2 boilers fail, are the boilers getting installed the same model, the same company, the same everything, or are we going with something different, or is that something we know at this exact moment?
Ms. Scott?
I do not have that information, so I will defer that question to the Director of Community Services.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. I'll refer that to Ken. He have more technical information on that.
Yeah, there'll be exact same replacement there. Obviously, we'll look into possible warranty. To put a different style in there, a lot of different piping configuration changes, it would be way more timely. So yeah, recommendation would just be to go with the same models that are just kind of unplugged, plug back in. Not quite that simple, but way simpler than going with a different style.
Thank you. Follow-up?
No, but I have another question.
Yep, go ahead.
This one. Ms. Scott had mentioned that Town Hall will be the warming center going forward until we can have access to the community center again. I'm wondering if there's a plan to have Town Hall open for extended hours. I know it's going to get a little warmer in the coming days, but I see that like nights are still 27 plus wind chill.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to Ms. Scott, but my understanding is if we are having an extreme cold warning, they would have to follow the same documentation, but I'll just confirm that with Ms. Scott.
Our plan was to have Town Hall open until 9 p.m.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else for discussion? Councilor Norbury?
Seeing no other questions, I'll make a motion.
Motion's already on the floor.
Oh.
Second it. Jeez, I'm not the only one. Okay, I had something, I just can't remember what the question was. It's all good. Councilor Jilic?
So I just wanted to confirm, we had 2 boilers, both of them have failed. Do we use 2 boilers to operate the heating system, or do we have one on backup and one to operate the community center?
Ms. Scott?
How the boiler system operates at the community center is beyond my expertise, so I will defer that to the Director of Community Services.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. I'll pass that to Ken.
Typically on in the bitter cold, we definitely need 2 to function to the level that we require. They modulate up and down so they can run from 5% right up to 100%. In extreme cold weather like this, definitely have 2 of them. The one running at 100% was just barely enough to keep everything going with a high demand on the system. But yeah, 2 are required to maintain.
Okay, and I just think the other question was, do we have 2 boilers or 3 boilers or more?
Just 2. We did keep one of the old ones in place when we installed the new ones, but yeah, the 2 new ones we got were more capacity than the 3 previous ones we had. So we have more power than we had previously, but just not at this time.
Okay, so my understanding is we replaced two boilers in 2023.
That's correct.
We kept one of the old boilers that made us that we had three, one for a backup if it was ever needed, whether that's the extreme cold or if one was under maintenance or whatever, that we had one new one and possibly a secondary old one if it needed the extra boiler temp. Just want to make sure that's correct.
So again, I will ask the Director of Community Services if he can explain the nuances of what the intention was for the older boiler that we kept and the purpose of that.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. I'll have the Chicken to answer.
You bet. No, you're correct with that. It was just kept as a emergency backup if we needed it, or like say if we had to do repairs on one, we could cycle that one on to assist the other one.
Okay, I guess my question back to Ms. Scott would be, so right now we're looking at replacing two. It sounded like the older unit that we kept for reasons that maybe happened, and my understanding of staff mentioned in their presentation that they did try to use that one to fire up and it failed as well. So I'm assuming that one may not be able to be repairable, but if it is, I'd like to hear about that. But if it isn't, are we eventually looking at making sure that we look at a third one so that we have a possible backup?
So again, I will ask the Director of Community Services to provide that information.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. I'll wait for that, Chicken.
Ideally, we wouldn't really require a third one. It's unfortunate that we've had these failures. When it's running properly, it's definitely more than enough capacity. The third one the old one was just kept in place as a matter of why not keep it and use it as it was there, already hooked up.
Okay, no, and I appreciate that, and I just want to make sure, we're obviously, it never happens when it's plus 30 outside, it happens when we're minus 34, 35. My concern is when I hear from staff that, hats off to staff, because obviously the contractor that you're using is going to be on site fairly quick, and I think that's really important to know. But do we ever see that there may possibly be delays? It sounds like we may, obviously, the supplier has these in stock, but is that always a thing? I just look at where we live. We're minus 30. I mean, we do normally see, 3 to 4 weeks a year at minus 35. These things, I understand staff has to work through it if it's under warranty. But my concern is if it was to happen last week when we first initiated the cold spell, we could be in a lot worse scenario if boilers were not easily accessible. Scott?
I'm just trying to extrapolate the question out of that. The question is, should we be looking at making sure we have additional backup boilers if needed?
Well, I guess my real question is, if these boilers weren't easily accessible, let's say they didn't, I'm assuming it sounds like from staff side, they're looking for approval so they can purchase these things and get them on their way to Tumbler. If they weren't available, they weren't in their warehouse, what timeline are we looking at?
Oh, okay, I understand.
Sorry, I kind of rambled, so.
So yeah, I will ask the Director of Community Services if he can provide that information.
Thanks, Ms. Scott. Mayor Council, I'll have that, can't answer that because I know he dealt with that last time, so he had a better idea of timelines.
Yes, unfortunately, they had 3 actually in stock in Langley, Lower Mainland there. But that's not always the case for sure. So having a third one, you could say it's a little overkill, but not when we have a situation like this, or if we get, like, say, 3-4 weeks of minus 40 weather. Definitely would be beneficial to have the extra capacity there. There would be additional costs if we were to go with 3, well, obviously because the additional boiler. Not only that, the piping reconfiguration, the venting of the exhaust and the air intake all has to be slightly modified. Most of it's definitely doable. We did it for the other 2, just be some more additional costs. Definitely something to look for or look into going forward. But starting with the 2 would be definitely is what we need to do for sure.
Okay. Thanks very much for staff for that. I mean, I think it's just important to have that thought process, and I have a process after this thought. But is there any more discussion? Okay, going to call the question. The recommendation that's on the floor is the council approve $300,000 in the 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan for all costs associated with replacing the boilers for the community center with funds coming from operating surplus. Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Second recommendation, please. Councillor Norbury.
That council pre-approves up to $300,000 for all costs associated with the replacement of the community center boiler prior to the adoption of the 2025-2029 financial plan.
Seconder, Councillor Noxana. Discussion? Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Any questions from the gallery? Okay, is there any emailed in questions?
I don't know. If you wanted to give me a 30-second recess, I can check.
Yeah, we'll just take a quick recess here. Sorry. Was there any emailed in questions?
No.
Perfect. Thank you. Taking adjournment. Councilor Norbury.
February 5th, 2025 special council meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, Councilor Noxana. All in favor? Perfect. Adjourned. Thank you very much for joining in via Zoom.